everyone? It's your girl Shay here, and I'm back with another video for you guys. And if you can't tell by the title, I'm gonna take it back to our favorite animes we watched as a kid. That's right, I'm all about nostalgia today, so don't at me. I just really want to talk about it, but what I want to mainly talk about with these nostalgic animes of ours are animes we watched as kids. That's right, so I'm talking about animes like Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, Rurouni Kenshin. But to be honest, I'm not going to be talking about the last two because I actually watched those when I was a teenager, and I'm talking about kids. So the first three I named, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Sailor Moon, are the ones I'm going to be talking about. And of course, I'm going to be talking about the good and the bad, but what I really want to talk about is how do we feel about these animes now? Because we all know they hold a special place in our hearts because we watched them as kids, and for many of us, they were the first animes we watched, and what really got us down the road, that is nerddom. Sorry, can't pronounce that word today. But anyway, I'm going to start off with the anime Dragon Ball Z. And because I'm starting off with that show, I'm of course leaving my favorite one for last, which if you know me, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. But anyway, Dragon Ball Z, of course, many of us were introduced back in the early 90s, and it actually came out like towards the late 80s if you started out with Dragon Ball. But Dragon Ball Z, of course, takes place with Goku, his son Gohan, his wife Chi-Chi, and how him and the Z Fighters always help to save Earth from some kind of a new monster, whereas if it's Frieza, the Ginyu Force, or anybody else for that matter. So of course Dragon Ball Z we all know and love, but what about the bad parts of Dragon Ball Z? So many of us always talk about how the one thing we all hated about Dragon Ball Z was that it took so long for them to come up with a conclusion. And what I mean is just a solution to actually beat the bad guy. There are so many filler episodes in Dragon Ball Z that you just see pans of moving rocks. You always see someone getting blown up or whatever, but there's no actual like solution to the entire thing. And it all ends with like Goku doing like a spirit bomb that takes him 5 episodes to actually power up before he actually sends it at the opposing person. Now, it wasn't all bad. I know you guys are like, well, you love this show, so why are you talking about the bad parts of it? And that's because you don't notice these bad things when you're a kid. You just know the show is really cool, you're interested in watching it, and you're watching two people fight each other. And if you're a girl, you're also looking at the show thinking, hey, some of these guys are kind of hot. But anyway, the main thing is, Dragon Ball Z, though, was still a revolutionary show. I mean, the good thing about it was that it put a lot of mainstream animes on the map, and to be honest, it got a lot of people into anime. Also, it kind of set the tone for, like, Dragon Ball Z being that, like, guru legendary anime that it is. I mean, it's 2018 and they're still coming out with Dragon Ball Z episodes, and while they're not the original Dragon Ball Z episodes, there are different spin-offs, and there's video games, and there's also of course the many different voice actors you have who actually voice in this series who have become legendary themselves. I mean, Sean Schemmel, who voices Goku, is legendary, and of course you have Chris Sabat, who voices Vegeta, among millions of other characters within the Dragon Ball Z universe, that is also a legend himself. So, yes, there are bad parts of Dragon Ball Z, such as like I mentioned, the panning of landscape and taking forever for a spirit bomb to be thrown at the opposing person, but still, it's what we know and what we love about Dragon Ball Z. Now, for the next one, of course, I gotta talk about Pokemon. Now, as many of us also know, Pokemon also came out in the early 90s, like 1997, 1998, and of course many of us who were kids at the time became immersed in this Pokemon world. We all wanted to have Pikachu as a pet, and we all wanted to travel the world like Ash Ketchum, although we soon realized that's not possible. Now, the main reasons why I feel like there's a problem with Pokemon is that no 10-year-old is allowed to travel the world by himself, and many of us wished at 10 that we could just drop everything, drop schooling, and just travel the world with our friends, or lack thereof, and basically catch these creatures that we want into little Pokeballs, make them battle each other, and also, of course, make friends with them along the way. Life doesn't work that way. But also, one of the downplays of Pokemon is that you soon realize that every episode is the same. Now, I've actually gone back and watched several episodes of Pokemon over again just because I want to catch up to where the series is now, and I realize that every episode is the same. somehow Team Rocket either catches Pikachu or catches someone's Pokemon that Ash and his friends end up meeting along the way, and then they get blown off and you hear them say Team Rocket is blasting off again, and there ends the episode, and they continue on their merry way for Ash to become the Pokemon master that he hopes to be. And you realize that you're like, there is no ending to this show, and at this point in 2018 there isn't. Also, of course, many of us have noticed that Ash is still 10. Ash has not aged at all. Ash at this point should be probably around 30 at this point, but he's still 10. And of course, along the way, his animation has gotten, or not animation, but the drawing of him has gotten derpier and derpier along the way, and that, of course, many of us also hate. And of course, as those of us who are nostalgic and watched Pokemon from the beginning, we miss the original trio that is Ash, Brock, and Misty, which has now changed along the way. And Brock at some point came back. Misty stayed around for a little bit, but then ultimately they got kind of, I think at this point, rid of both of them. So now Ash has completely different friends at this point. But once again, just like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon has made a name for itself. Pokemon has lasted for 20 plus years, with fans from the beginning still watching the show, as well as new fans. And of course, we all know about the huge mobile success that is Pokemon Go, which brought in a lot of fans that neither have played the games for Pokemon, nor have they watched the show, but they enjoy playing the mobile game itself. So you have new fans coming along, and of course, there's also the hype surrounding the new Pokemon game, Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, that's coming out for Nintendo Switch. So even though I still have my drawbacks about this show now that I'm older, I still have to say I enjoy the show overall because it takes me back to that nostalgic place that was my childhood. But it also, you know, makes me feel good about the fact that there is an anime that has lasted so long, and plus the fact that my parents still call every Pokemon Pikachu, and they still remember taking me to the movies at 9 years old to watch Pokemon the first movie, which I of course dragged them to go see. But after talking about Pokemon, you know, I have to go into my favorite anime, that is Sailor Moon. And I know you guys are like, Shay's gonna drag Sailor Moon? That's right, I am gonna drag Sailor Moon for at least a few minutes, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm going to get back to the fact that I like it later on. But anyway, Sailor Moon, of course, also came out in the early 90s. As you can see, there's a trend with this being the early 90s due to the fact that I am a 90s child. But anyway, Sailor Moon for me was the first anime I ever watched. I remember coming home from school at 6 years old and sitting in front of my grandparents' television set with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and watching Sailor Moon. I also remember crying over the last episode of the first season because I thought they were all dead. They weren't, but try to tell that to a 7-year-old and she'll tell you you're very, very wrong and that they're actually dead. But anyway, just like Pokemon, I soon realized the drawbacks of Sailor Moon because I also have gone back and rewatched Sailor Moon. Yeah, that's right, I watched all 5 seasons. And I realized that just like Pokemon, it tends to have the same exact conclusion in every single episode. Not only that, but of course you have Serena, who actually gave me some very misconceptions of what junior high was supposed to be like once I got to be of the junior high age. Also, of course, you have the fact that there is no way that genetics plays any part in the show. What I mean by genetics is the fact that you have Rini, who turns out to be Serena and also Darian's daughter, and she has pink hair and red eyes, and everyone's trying to figure out how does she have pink hair and red eyes, and they actually never actually tell you why she has pink hair and red eyes. You just kind of accept it as a child. But also, not only that, there's also the whole age difference between Darian and Serena, which of course Darian is in college and Serena is in middle school, but yet no one talks about the fact that they're dating. And when you get to be 11 and you realize that someone who's in college is about 18 years old, you realize there's a huge issue with that. But needless to say, like I said, I'm not going to drag Sailor Moon for long, so let's get to the positives of Sailor Moon, which is that every girl watched this show. It was the first show ever that actually had a full cast of female leads and female characters that girls could look up to. Most of the time when girl characters were in anime, they weren't kicking butt, they were actually being saved by their male counterparts. But in this show, the females ruled the show. Not only that, but there was also these 5 different girls, 5 different characters that had 5 very distinct personalities, and every girl could relate to at least one of those girls in that show. which is why so many girls loved it, and which is why I still love it, no matter how repetitive I feel the show is. To this day, Sailor Moon's still one of my favorite shows. But what do you think about your favorite animes that you had as kids? Do you still hold the same love for them that you had before? Or has that, well, excitement waned over the years since you've gotten older and you realize that the show you know and love, you may not like as much as you did? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, I'm going to leave links down below to all my social media accounts, my Instagram, my Twitter, and of course my blog. And like always, you guys, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and like always, you guys, stay nerdy. Alright, you guys, bye.